The Somerset levels do not rise, they stretch wide, tidal, deceptive. In winter they dissolve into silver inland sea. In the summer they harden into dark, fibrous peat that smells faintly metallic, so the earth itself carries old blood in its lungs. Mist gathers low across the land. It doesn't drift, it waits. And when the wind drops, the silence there becomes strangely complete, the kind that makes even distant sounds feel unwelcome. Between the distant silhouette of Burrow Mump and the ancient sprawl of Glastonbury Abbey once stood a solitary oak. No hedgerow beside it, no companion trees, just a broad, weathered, scarred trunk rising alone from the peat. The ground around it sat slightly higher than the surrounding marsh, barely a rise, but enough that the tree could be seen for miles. Enough that anyone crossing the levels would eventually notice it, and eventually ask why it stood there alone. They called it the hanging tree. Long before the execution, the levels were contested land. Marsh, reed bed, fishing grounds, common pasture. Water was a livelihood. Water was power, and whoever controlled the drainage controlled the land itself. Monks from Glastonbury Abbey began early attempts to reclaim the wetlands centuries earlier, carving primitive channels through silt and flood water to create strips of pasture. Later in the 17th century, Dutch engineers arrived with sharper tools and harsher ideas. Straight channels cut through ancient marshland, ditches deepened, water was forced into discipline, the levels changed. Drainage brought profit. Drainage also brought resentment. Families who had relied on open waters found fences where their boats once moved freely. Shared grazing lands became private fields. The marsh was tamed, but the anger it left behind was not. Hayricks burned in the night, livestock disappeared, tools were sabotaged, men accused neighbours, neighbours accused strangers. Land may have been flat, but tempers were not. By 1791, punishment in rural England was swift and uncompromising. Arson was not considered desperation, it was considered destruction, and destruction could hang a man. Thomas Avery learned that, because Thomas Avery did hang. Parish records confirm it, sparse ink on fragile paper, a single line written in careful script. Thomas Avery, executed for the burning of agricultural property. No elaboration, no defence recorded, just the verdict and the date. The oak was chosen for its visibility, the western limb for its strength. It stretched outward over open peat land where the wind travelled uninterrupted from the Bristol Channel. The rope was thrown over. The cart stood beneath him. Witnesses later described the sky that morning as strangely colourless. A dull white horizon, windless, heavy. A few farmers gathered at a distance, no cheering, no protest, just quiet obligation. The cart rolled. The rope tightened. The branch bent slightly, just enough to make the wood groan. Then it steadied. It held. Thomas Avery's body remained there for 3 days, turning slowly. The wind on the levels never truly stops. It moves constantly on open ground. The body moved with it, back, forward, back, forward. The rope carved a shallow groove into the branch, at first barely visible. But with every slow rotation, the fibres deepened. Wood remembers friction. And when the body was finally cut down, the scar remained, and the land kept it. 87 years later, a drainage engineer named Elias Harrow arrived on the Somerset levels. He was 26, educated, methodical, sent to survey embankment reinforcements after a series of winter floods. The oak was still there, still alone, still visible from every direction. Farmers warned him about it, not dramatically, just quietly, the kind of warning people give when they hope someone will listen but expect them to not. Elias smiled. He believed in the measurement, not superstition. He used the tree as a fixed survey point. Its isolation made it useful. On his third evening he stayed too long. Mist gathered earlier than expected, not drifting across the fields, forming, compressing, turning distance into a narrow corridor of grey. Then Elias heard it. A wooden strain, not a crack, a stretch. He froze. The air had gone completely still. No wind, no movement. The creak came again, longer this time, as though something heavy had shifted its weight. Elias stepped closer to the trunk. The rope scar along the western limb caught the last weak light of evening. Smooth, polished, deep. He reached up and placed his gloved fingers inside the groove. Behind him, the peat shifted. He turned. Nothing. No one. But the sensation lingered. A vertical alignment against the trunk. A shape too narrow to be a shadow, too upright to be missed. Elias swallowed. His throat tightened, not from fear, from pressure, as though something unseen remembered the rope. The first lantern appeared 1 week later. Elias recorded the sighting in his field notebook. Only one sentence. Amber light observed beneath oak limb. Source indeterminate. He did not record what he felt. The lantern did not appear to be carried. It hung, suspended in empty air beneath the scarred branch. It swayed slowly, left, right. Beneath it, the mist distorted, not forming a body, but suggesting one. An elongated, vertical absence. The creak returned, closer, heavier. Elias felt the air tighten around his neck. Not hands, not rope, just pressure. The lantern rotated once, tracing the exact arc a body would swing, and then darkness swallowed the light. As Elias returned the following night, he told himself he was testing wind patterns, but curiosity had already replaced reason. Mist lay thicker across the fields. The oak rose from it like a mast from water. The lantern was already there, swaying. But this time, something stood beneath it, not clearly, not fully formed. Just a narrow, dark alignment where the mist refused to settle. And slowly, very slowly, it began to turn. Elias stepped backwards. The lantern followed the movement, not towards him, but rotating to face him. The pressure returned in his throat, sharper, colder. Elias left the field without writing another word in his notebook. 2 weeks later, a farmhand named Thomas Kerslake came to Elias. He'd been digging drainage trenches across the peat field. His shovel struck something hard beneath the soil, not stone and not timber, something hollow. He cleared the peat away with his hands, and he saw something pale. A skull. The skeleton lay almost perfectly preserved in the wet soil. Peat slows decay. It keeps secrets. The bones emerged slowly as the trench widened. A rib cage collapsed inwards, arms twisted slightly behind its spine, and the neck. Elias knelt beside the trench, holding his lantern low. The yellow light slid across the vertebrae. Something about them was wrong. Compressed. 2 bones showed a narrow indentation. Not a break, a pressure groove. Kerslake looked up towards the rise. The oak stood against the dim sky, the rope scar visible even from the ground. The branch above them creaked softly. Neither man spoke. For a moment the mist seemed to thicken beneath the limb, and something unseen shifted its weight. After Elias spoke cautiously of what he had seen, others admitted their own encounters. A shepherd claimed his dog refused to cross the rise at twilight. A widow reported hearing a rope strain outside her cottage window during the windless nights. Children whispered about the man who stands wrong. The lantern man became part of local vocabulary. Some believed it was Avery, forced to relive the final rotation of eternity. Others insisted it was something older, the land replaying violence like peat preserves ancient timber trackways. The oak fell in 1919 during a severe flood. Months of standing water loosened its roots. During the winter storm, the trunk split. Villagers cut the wood for fire, but one man refused to burn his share. He claimed moisture seeped from the timber long after it had dried, and when the wood warmed beside the hearth, it made a tightening sound, like fibres pulling against remembered strain. There's no marker, no plaque, only subtle elevation changes and peat that yields under pressure. On certain evenings, when mist presses low and the sky turns the colour of dull pewter, locals still report a faint amber sway across the flooded fields. Not high, not theatrical, but just enough. And sometimes a creak, slow and measured, as though the fibres strain gently against remembered weight. If you walk the Somerset levels at dusk, you may find something, you may find nothing, or you may feel the air tighten briefly around your throat. Not choking, not violent, just a reminder, because peat preserves, wood remembers, and some ropes never fully release.